Imagine a time when the temples of Egypt stood in ruin. The great rituals that once bound gods and humans together had grown silent, yet people still longed for connection. In that fragile space between collapse and continuity, a new kind of scripture appeared. Not the polished hymns of priests, nor the grand rituals of civic cults, but handbooks, scraps of papyrus filled with spells, invocations, and whispered instructions. We call them today the Greek Magical Papyri, and among their pages lie one of the most haunting promises, a ritual that could reveal to you your daimon, the unseen companion who walks beside you. The Greek Magical Papyri, often abbreviated to PGM, are collections of magical texts preserved from about the 2nd to the 5th centuries CE. They were written in Greek, Demotic Egyptian, and occasionally Coptic, blending the spiritual DNA of several cultures. Think of them as survival manuals of the sacred. Where the old temples had lost their power, these scrolls became portable mystery schools. Anyone with access to a papyrus, the ability to read, a few herbs, and determination could perform rituals once reserved for initiates. They are eclectic, sometimes chaotic, yet profoundly moving. You can feel the desperation, but also the creativity of seekers who refuse to let the gods vanish from their lives. So why would someone want to meet their daimon? In Greek thought, a daimon is not a demon in the Christian sense. It was a mediating spirit, a presence between mortal and divine. Socrates famously spoke of his daimonion, a voice that whispered warnings and guided his decisions. This sign I have had ever since I was a child. The sign is a voice which comes to me, and when it comes, it always dissuades me from what I'm about to do, but never commands me to do anything. The Romans called it the genius, or the genius, the spirit of inspiration that accompanies every person, family, or even a place. For the Platonists, the daimon was the bridge to higher truth, a sign to each soul at birth. To know your daimon was to know yourself at a deeper level, to discover the companion who could reveal your gifts, your destiny, even your hidden dangers. The PGM preserves several ways to meet one's daimon. One of the most dramatic and complete is the so-called Mithras liturgy. In it, the practitioner rises through the cosmic spheres, meeting guardians of fire and light until a radiant guide appears to reveal divine secrets. Another is the steel of Ju, or Yu, known as the headless rite. Here the magician calls upon the headless god, identifies with him, and in that moment of empowerment encounters the daimon directly. But perhaps the simplest and most intimate comes from PGM 7. The instructions are brief. Take frankincense, recite these sacred words, then sleep. Your daimon will appear and speak his name. This was not temple magic. This was something an ordinary seeker could attempt at home. A one-shot ritual. Perform it, receive the vision, and carry that name as a talisman for life, even if you had to keep it secret on pain of death. And here we feel both the beauty and the sorrow of these rites. They are flashes of lightning, brief, powerful, unforgettable, but they are also born of absence. The papyri are haunted by the collapse of communal religion. Where once you might have been initiated into mysteries, now you try to summon a mystery into your bedroom. Where once a priest or priestess would mediate the gods, now you light your own incense and whisper borrowed words. These daimon-revelation rites feel like attempts to patch a hole in the fabric of the sacred. They give seekers a glimpse, but not a rhythm, a name, but not a lifelong practice. Centuries later, European magicians would attempt to revive this contact through the Goetia and the Book of Abramelin. These were lifeboats in their own time, efforts to preserve fragments of demonic contact when Christianity had narrowed and criminalized the spiritual imagination. The Goetia catalogued spirits, commanding them into triangles as if they were bureaucrats to be interrogated. The Abramelin retreat, a long period of fasting, prayer, and isolation, was meant to secure contact with one's holy guardian angel. Yet, what survives today is often more distortion than depth. The rituals were sensationalised, made famous through figures like Aleister Crowley, who transformed the Abramelin rite into a theatre of ego. The language is one of conquest, commanding spirits, demanding visions. As one modern editor of Abramelin observed, its appeal has long been more to the imagination of the would-be adept than to any tradition of lived practice. These texts are valuable historically, but spiritually, they often collapse into what we might call a "can I speak to the manager" spirituality, where the magician bypasses the daimones, the genii, the intermediaries, in order to demand direct access to the ultimate authority. The world of the PGM reminds us of a very different vision. A cosmos alive with spirits, gods, daimones, ancestors, forces of nature, woven into a complex web, not a hierarchy to be bullied but a community to be navigated. The ancients sought not to control, but to meet their daimon, to discover who walked with them, not to leapfrog to the throne of God. The philosopher Plutarch put it simply: the daimones serve as interpreters and couriers between gods and men. This is not sensationalism. It's not ego-driven conquest. It's a relationship. And perhaps that is what our age needs most. Not another grand retreat or conjuration, but a return to the company of the daimones. For me, this is not theory. My own daimon is Bune, described in the Grimoires as a Duke of Hell, but known to me as a guide of thresholds and wisdom. Our relationship is born of familiarity, respect, and above all, effort. I work through him through a regular and respectful practice that has evolved over time, and that fits into my rider relationship with the divine and the inner world of the mystic. It is not sensational, nor is it conquest. It is companionship, sometimes challenging, sometimes gentle, but always transformative. And I believe that this is closer to what the ancients meant when they spoke of meeting their daimon. And this is where we can learn something today. It is one thing to perform a ritual once, to see a vision and receive a name. It is another to cultivate that relationship over weeks, months, and years, to weave it into the rhythm of daily life. The ancients may have lacked that outlet, but we don't have to. We can take inspiration from their desperate flashes of contact and turn them into practices of continuity, from lightning to fire, from one-shot revelation to living relationship. The Greek Magical Papyri remind us of something timeless, that even in an age of collapse, humans will find a way to reach to the divine. That the desire to meet our daimon, the spirit who walks with us, is eternal. In the next episode of this cycle, we'll step inside one of these ancient rites. We'll examine the dream revelation ritual in detail, and I'll show you exactly how the ancients tried to summon their daimon in sleep. Because who knows? Perhaps if you try it, your daimon will whisper its name to you too. If this exploration has sparked something in you, consider subscribing for the journey ahead. And let me know in the comments, have you ever felt a guiding presence in your life? A whisper, a companion unseen?